Good morning. Mexico City welcomed us today with lots of cold. This is not the usual weather, but we're here and we're happy to have you here with us. We're going to be talking today about what ideas is, something that we should have done the first day, but we are doing this in the last day so you know what we're doing, with whom, and for whom. And well, we're now explaining all that. The Ideas Association was founded 26 years ago, basically, by a group of non orthodox economists, most of them linked to Nehru University in Delhi. They summoned a group of economists with similar mindsets of different parts of the world, basically all parts of the world. And there was no representative per country, but rather per areas. And we were summoned to an initial meeting that I mentioned yesterday, that it was called Confronting Imperialism. It was a seminar and it caught my attention because this was 25 years ago. Can you hear me okay? This was 25 years ago. And we discussed things that were no longer discussed in Latin America. It was very little discussed amongst economists and not discussed among political scientists. Um, we had undergone changes in government and other issues. And I was struck, struck by the fact that I analyzed the school of dependence and everything related to the substitution of Im- imports and prevish that was mentioned yesterday by Professor Pereira. So I thought it was as if I was going back to my school years. And this means two things. With Indian economists, the presence of a strong Marxist mindset still, and the existence of a strong national bourgeoisie, a very nationalist bourgeoisie, something that lots of sociologists in Latin America suggest that doesn't exist in Latin America. There is not a nationalist bourgeoisie, but rather a purchasing bourgeoisie. And it caught my attention, and I was very clear about what ideas was all about. Recovering a way of thinking about how society should be organized in the world and in countries different from the assumptions, the economic mindsets that are derived from developed countries. Much of the social and economic theory comes from developed countries, especially economic theory that comes from Anglo-Saxon countries. There is not much ways of thinking that has come from France or Germany. So, what are the elements of ideas to just academics? and maybe even communicators, because we need not just to promote our actions, but our thinking, especially. And that is why we need wide dissemination so we can create work teams. All of you are young people, and of course, inviting young people and academics and students, of course, that could also be the case, and activists. So, in principle, that would be the structure and the objectives of ideas. We're going to hear more in detail about what we're thinking to have this in Latin America, Ideas LAC, because after 25 years of ideas, we decided that that was too focused on India and Asian countries with very little dissemination to other regions, maybe Africa because of the closeness and the language. And so the mandate was to regionalize, to maximize, and to look for alternative financing sources, because one of the proposals is not to look for financing in the World Bank and to not look for financing in local governments. None of us has received World Bank financing, and we don't choose World Bank finance projects because there would be a certain inconsistency between objectives and proposals. Of course, you are free to do so, but not in ideas. That would be your personal decision that we would respect. But as an organization, uh, of we can look for other options. For example, the International Labor Organization, institutions that are part of the UN that have avenues to antagonize the system, maybe. I have participated in many projects and many meetings at the ILO, at the UN, at the World Trade Organization. So I now leave you with Noemi. I'm the chairperson of IDEAS in general, and Noemi is the chairperson of IDEAS Latin America and the Caribbean. Thank you, Alicia, for this introduction. When ideas first appeared, which was in 2001 in a conference in South Africa, we started rethinking economic development. We started creating these heterodox group that could fit all ideas as long as they focused on development. I mean, what do we want to do? Why are we starting with this? Well, when we met, we said, let's do a Latin American conference about the reorganization worldwide. And these are the axes that we have included in IDEAS LAC. We don't want to use LATAM because it sounds like too over the edge. In this context, I first would like to thank the presence of Alicia for being here with us, Charles Abugre, Executive Secretary of IDEAS. I would like to thank the presence of all of you and our dear friend Isabel Rodriguez, who is our Executive Secretary. I would also like to thank all of you who are here from SUF, those of you who are online, via Zoom, etc. I would also like to thank the colleagues who have been with us in Ideas Latin America, Atina Vélez, and the wonderful participation of Esteban Teves in each one of their sessions. What are we proposing for Latin America and the Caribbean? Talking with Alicia, I said, let's leave ideas in the name because it's very iconic. But let's call it IDEAS LAC. I think that I thought initially that we had to be called IDEAS Latin America, but we decided in the end to include the Caribbean. As Alicia mentioned, we want to drive research policies and in a multidisciplinary approach without ignoring other lagged regions. And we want to obviously include, and we're very glad about this, to include young people. We have a mixture here right now, and we want to pass on the reins. What we want to discuss, well, very succinctly, we don't believe that development does not just mean growth, and we have a problem that has been placed at our front door, which is the unequal income distribution, which we believe that is fundamental. Growth and development is not done thanks to market mechanisms. It will not be led by private initiatives. We need public policy, as we have seen here, to create a relationship of strength that boosts development. I'm sorry. We want to look for minimums for population access to basic services, and this will change throughout the different periods. Another thing that we have in these same issues is that we haven't reached economic dependence, which we haven't reached. We have dependence in our region, but we haven't reached economic dependence, and we have to work on this because we need to have, uh, as we said yesterday, we need to have intermediate assets. When we talk about development, the political problem that Alicia mentioned is basic. Historically, private capital in our region, and we believe that in all regions, has been tied to foreign assets and capital with the purpose of extracting the most earnings. The way colonialism happened here was very different, as we mentioned yesterday. And let me just turn this off. I- I'm 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 sorry about that. So we have to understand the problem of political dependence, how the domestic capital had ties with the foreign capital and in the industrialization period and in all periods. This is something basic that we need to face nowadays in our third stage. We need to rethink development. We are in the midst of a war in Europe, of an economic crisis. We have this pandemic that we haven't overcome. Nowadays, I think that we are entering a new accumulation period or model, and we need to think how we want to insert ourselves into that as Latin America. And this is the discussion that we need to start. How do we want to face this? We are in front of a challenge. And this is a key moment. In this context, what we need to do, well, we need to analyze the causes and mechanisms that create economic crisis and their effects in the labor structure, how we operate costs and benefits in crisis, how these impacts in costs and benefits, and what are the economic reasons. Here, we have agreed on certain key points. Basic economic development. Economic development, and we took this idea from Bolivia of living well. It's not just any economic development. We want such economic development that is in harmony with nature and people's dignity. Thank you. And we have a list of topics: financing to industrial policy development, fiscal and monetary policy, the resolution of foreign debt or financial organizations, etc. We need to start thinking of possibilities, and because we have different ways of thinking, we need to include Central America. Economic instability because of high price volatility, exchange rate instability, fiscal dependencies. These are some of the ideas that we are using to call participants feminist economics, access to labor, salaries. I don't know. The list goes on and on. And our colleagues from the South can help us. Argentina, Chile, Peru, they have also big movements like ours. Another problem that we're also studying very much, especially by Alicia and Isabel, is climate change and energy policy. What to do, how fast, how to finance it. These are some of the ideas that we're proposing. And I believe that we can also profit from what you say. And that is why we are calling you to the discussion. We will organize this a bit more later on. We had discussed a board of directors, consultation body. We are inviting participants when we are about to ask them to sign in, and then we want to start working because time is scarce. So we have moved forward in the structuring, in this idea of projects, in having a detailed proposal, as Noemi mentioned, about the conceptualization of development. But we have also moved forward in practical things, which are at times more difficult because they don't just depend on us or our time or our will to do them. A step was to hear the best way, best possible way, best possible legal way to create such an organization that aspires to get funding, to generate funding, but is, of course, a nonprofit. We are not interested in making profits. We don't want to become rich. We didn't do this before because we chose not to do it. We chose to have an independent work line. It wasn't easy, among other things, because of our ignorance of the civil Mexican legal system. I don't even know the Colombian one, and Noemi is probably more knowledgeable than I am, but we have finally made everything ready with the notary public, and we're about to sign everything. Our articles of incorporation are almost ready. It's, of course, a very long document and it's very detailed, comparing some things about legal systems. The Mexican system is much more detailed and concise than the Colombian one, which is a bit more literal. But anyway, this is ready. That is why Noemi was talking about the board of directors and all the different agencies and bodies, because it is an obligation here in Mexico. In India, it might be different. Over there, the legal and administrative portion is a bit more relaxed, but all this is ready. Isabel also organized the design and the creation of a website through which we will communicate and we will share our mindset, our work, our organization, our outcomes, our purposes. These are the most concrete steps in terms of administrative issues that we have taken, and us three have been doing our part. I believe that the translations are uploading. The translations are being uploaded. We appreciate that now we will have all sessions available, magnificent sessions. And now let's start discussing and let's pour our brains out to discuss this situation. Um, it, we as a society can win or lose in this situation. One first step, Noemi, could be for us to send you notes on development to be discussed. As Noemi mentioned, we have a technical document, a 4-page technical document in Times New Roman 12 in order for you to propose concepts about the ideology behind our strategy to analyze development and to then structure the project, which would have this dual purpose of getting funding that we are looking already through ideas and to set up the project. Isabel is going to show us how we're going to set everything up. That's right. What we wanted was dissemination. Unfortunately, we were beat by time because of the Constitution, the Articles of Incorporation. Which was a bit complex, and the second step for our incorporation was because we wanted our website to have a .org address. So we had to take certain steps. The purpose of the website is to have this dissemination, to broadcast your work, and to frame everything in different topics. For example, this first seminar had the purpose of identifying problems in development. As Noemi mentioned, we have 4 or 5 areas, and we're going to have subtopics in those that will allow us to have a space to disseminate events and articles, short notes, uh, cross-sectional topics that arise, because this year we were so surprised by the emergence of different topics that were unattended. So having this network, we are requesting to you to for you to mention more colleagues that could be interested in these research fields, because we believe that we have a lot of human capital, of course, human capital, you're not machines. And derived from that human capital, we have huge specialists in different topics, people who are working very arduously, that sometimes get lost. And we believe that these framework will help us move forward, will help us get to know each other and strengthen our research fields. We are contributing to the ideas general idea, but with specific regional problems, specific to the region and specific to the country. We want to set up everything this way. We have ideas, but as Dr. Bresser Pereira mentioned, we have different realities. We can identify variables like extractivism, manufacturing as a topic, and everything is different. We face different circumstances and mechanisms, although we may have a general problem, low development, as we have discussed here. Maybe topics related to public expenditure, industrial policies, but we are trying to do this dissemination, and hopefully you will respond when you receive one of our emails, and hopefully you will recommend us more people that you may know of. We need to start gathering more and more people, more researchers. So that would be all. Thank you very much. I think that we have run out of time, so we hereby declare IDEAS LAC as started.